The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we have a listener email from Linda, who lives in Queens, New York. And Linda asks, it's being reported that the EU and the UK are threatening to take action if Israel doesn't stop its military fight and blocking of humanitarian aid to Gaza. The UK has already suspended trade negotiations with Israel and sanctioned the West Bank. The EU, it is being reported, is considering similar actions. What does this mean for Israel? Is world support eventually going to turn on the Israelis? Do you think these actions might influence Israeli plans? Or is this really just show?
Okay, so before I turn this over to Scott, because this is really Scott, all I'm going to say is the UK, this is your own damn fault. You are the bozos that controlled this area and basically cut it up without having any consideration of who lived where. So this is a disaster of your nation. So I'll turn it over to Scott from there.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah. And you look at all the hotspots around the world, and Great Britain has probably a big hand in most of it. Certainly in India and Pakistan, that was a real fumble also. But look, you ask if the world is tired of Israel or whatever, however it was put. Could you read that part over again?
Yeah.
They're turning against Israel.
Yeah. What does this mean for Israel? Is world support eventually going to turn on the Israelis? Okay. And do you think these actions might influence Israeli plans, or is it just for show?
Right. So when October 7th happened in 2023, Mark and I were talking, and I predicted that Israel had about 2 weeks, maybe a week, but maybe as much as 2 weeks to do something in retaliation before the world turned against them. That prediction, as usual, was wildly off base, as they had, I think, about 3 days before the world basically turned on Israel and Jews, by the way. In general, anti-Semitism went up, skyrocketed, really, after the attacks of October 7, 2023. And, in a really bizarre way, the Israelis were blamed for the attack, as if Hamas was some kind of peacekeeping organization that just had enough, and couldn't take it anymore and had to act. Nothing could be further from the truth. But Israel is going its own way, and they're going to do what they need to do to keep their people safe, which obviously that was an enormous dropping the ball at that time, which Netanyahu has still not paid the price for, but should, and I think will eventually. But Israel, one of my rules of thumb as an American Jew is to not tell Israel what to do to keep themselves safe, because we don't have any idea what it must be like to live in this tiny little country surrounded by enemies all the time and very concerned that they could be overrun at any time. And then you have all these college kids, chanting from the river to the sea, which they don't seem to understand means genocide. The more interesting development that's going on right now between Israel and the rest of the world is a report in one of today's newspapers that Israel is preparing to strike at Iran's nuclear sites. The article stressed that the Trump administration was not on board with that at this time, that they're still hoping for some kind of breakthrough negotiation, which would basically bring us back to where we were with the JCPOA back in 2012 or 13, whenever that was, that Barack Obama engineered that one, and that the Israelis probably have intelligence that Iran is using this time to ramp up their program, and that they're going to have to be dealt with. But the Israelis need U.S. bunker buster bombs that are capable of penetrating deep into the mountains and tunnels and cement carve-outs that they have protecting this program. But they'll do what they need to do to stay safe, and that includes action in Gaza. Clearly, they don't feel that they have decimated Hamas enough to let things go back to normal. You know, again, none of us here are in any kind of position to know that. So I think it's foolish for us to render judgment on them. And I'll point out one last thing and then, turn it back over to Mark. Last week, it was announced, I think it was last week, that it was announced that the Gaza Health Ministry had been, let's charitably call it, inaccurate in saying that 70% of the casualties in Gaza are women and children. They have revised that figure, and now it looks like more than 75% of those who Israel has killed in Gaza are indeed men of fighting age. And that reversal, and again, I'll be charitable and say inadvertent pronouncement that Israel was killing innocent women and children, turns out not to be true, and that they're effectively combating men. One child is too many, so I don't want to downplay that. But they are in a situation where they have been attacked, and they are going to do what they need to do to prevent that from ever happening again. And killing as many Hamas members as they possibly can is right in line with what we would do or what we have done with ISIS and with Al Qaeda. That there is no compromising, there is no jail to put them in. They must be eliminated and taken out of play altogether. And that's what Israel is doing. It's what we would do. I don't think the rest of the world is not for Israel anyway, so I don't think that really is a factor.
I agree. And I remember that conversation back that we were having, Scott, where you gave it 2 weeks, and maybe a week, two at the most, and it really did. The support for Israel declined rather rapidly. I'm going to hit up to the second question. Does this really matter? Trade negotiations with Israel. I don't know exactly what Great Britain trades with Israel. I'm really not sure. That would be something we'd have to look into. I mean, what, Guinness Stout, boiled beef? I really don't know what the trade agreement is between the two that would be that impactful to the Israeli population. I think most cars, I mean, my brother-in-law who lives in Israel, his car is an American car. I believe that, they really have more American cars than probably the British cars. I don't know. So, yeah, probably more for show in my mind. EU, once again, I have to ask myself, how much trade is there? These sanctions, they say they put onto the West Bank. What's the impact of that? You really have to know you'd have to really dig really deep into the trade agreements and say, okay, what are we really talking about here? What do the Israelis get from the European Union or the UK? I would think not a lot. I mean, what export? I don't know. Definitely not pork. I mean, we can probably say that's probably not on the table. So I truly believe one of the biggest trading partners that Israel has is the United States and probably maybe China. I don't know. But I just can't see where that would be gratefully impactful or change policy unless there is something there. And that is something that I'll look at, because it was an interesting question and I just did not have time to look it up. What really are we talking about here? We've stopped trade negotiations. Trading of what? Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. British music could be. But they're putting on a show. And I think they're putting on the show simply because of, not because Israelis defending themselves. I don't think anyone, I truly do not think anyone has an issue with Israel defending themselves. It's the portrait of the humanitarian aid not getting in. Now, we're in a war zone. And let's make no mistake, this is a war zone. Information out of a war zone, even a well-controlled war zone, is chaotic at best. You've got two sides who are going to tell two different stories. As Scott pointed out, the health ministry of Gaza coming out and saying, there was women and children, 73%. We know that not to be the case. We know that, but the information takes time to catch up because each side is going to portray the situation as they need to portray it, not only to the world, but to their own people. So I really do believe it's this portrayal of aid not getting through that the Brits and the EU has a real true problem with. I truly don't think it's the idea that they're going in and they're actually, fighting the war to protect themselves. But then again, as I said right from the beginning, Great Britain, you're the last people that should talk. This is your own fault. If you had done more than just draw some arbitrary lines into an area that you controlled post-World War II, this might not have happened. And you've done this to yourself, or you've actually done this to these people. You're away on an island someplace, and I know we have an awful lot of listeners in Great Britain, and we in the United Kingdom, and definitely appreciate every single one of you. And this is not the fault of your present government. This is one of those things. It's like with the United States and our treatment of Native Americans. We don't do that now like we did then, but we still have the sin of what we did back then. Well, this is Great Britain's sin for what they did post-World War II, creating this absolutely hotbed of disaster because somebody just didn't put a little bit of thought into it. And this was a complex problem, but it could have been handled a lot better and thought through. So UK being the first one out, I'm sorry. Okay. But again, my big question is to the impact of this. I don't think it's going to impact what Netanyahu does. I don't think Netanyahu cares. He's right now trying to save his own skin as far as his political life. And whichever way the wind blows inside of Israel, so if the Israelis say, screw the Brits, screw the EU, Netanyahu's going to say the same thing because it saves his bacon. And that was not a pun, saving his bacon. But yeah, I mean, that would be my thought on this one. It's politics, and it's international politics, and in many ways, international politics is all show, very little go.
Here in the States, I think we need to be more, I don't know if concerned is the right word, over a plan that was just uncovered a couple of days ago by the media, that the Trump administration is working on a plan to move 1 million Palestinians from Israel, the West Bank or Gaza, I think from Gaza mostly, to Libya. And that the United States is willing to unfreeze billions of dollars of funds that were frozen in Libya 10 years ago, 20 years ago, in exchange for them taking 1 million Palestinians. I don't know if anybody has sat down and thought this through or not. It's an interesting idea. Obviously, the likelihood of Palestinians being uprooted from the homeland that they're so strongly committed to staying in seems like, as usual, far-fetched. But that is something that apparently is in the works between the State Department, the Treasury Department, and the Libyan government. And I imagine the same kind of talks are happening elsewhere. So Trump's idea of moving the Palestinians out of that region and bringing them somewhere else seems to be very much in line with what Mark was talking about the British government doing when they arbitrarily drew lines and moved populations, let's say, from India to and Pakistan, and the slaughter that happened as a result of that, and what they did in carving up the Middle East. Just thoughtless foreign policy that only makes matters worse, doesn't make anything better. And I think that that's something that Americans may want to focus on rather than trade deals between Israel and the UK.
Yep, and to piggyback a little bit on that, a lot of whether or not this is going to be impactful depends on what the United States does. If the United States supports,
very true.
If the United States supports Israel, no, they're just not going to care what the EU is doing or what the Brits are going to do. So, I mean, the Brits will still, and the EU, some of the EU countries will still battle the Houthis because it impacts their shipping. Involved in that. And the Brits have been a partner in battling the Houthis. But that's to protect their own interests. And when this starts to impact oil and the movement of goods, as the Houthi issue did, that's when they're going to get involved. So Israel's attitude is where were you when this happened for us? Because in all reality, it doesn't really directly impact the EU or the UK. Not like the Houthis did. Not like the disruption of shipping did. So, and again, once again, we hope we answered that one.
Yeah, excuse me. I was thinking about the Libya, which doesn't surprise me what you said, Scott. I mean, Trump has been trying to move the people from Gaza, the Palestinians, out of Gaza for quite a while so that he can take the land and have his resort or whatever it is that he wants. And on the U.S. State Department website, Libya is a place that Americans should not be traveling to because it's not a safe place to go. And so, of course, this is where Trump wants to send all the people from Gaza. And now I guess the American taxpayers are going to be paying or partially, I don't know, whatever scheme Trump has, it's not going to be good for anyone except himself. It's certainly not going to be good for the Palestinians. They're not going to want to leave. This is going to be horrible if it happens. And if they're already in negotiations to do this, the instability and the conflict is going to become worse.
Good. I mean, it's an intriguing idea that probably isn't being very well thought through, I'm guessing.
Oh, it's not being thought through at all. I have no doubt.
It's like solving two problems in one stroke, right? You've got a problem with Libya, and now you've got a problem with the Palestinians, and you're going to solve them both by bundling them together. I mean, I don't know. It's an intriguing idea. I just don't. I think it's a little far-fetched.
I agree.
Well, it doesn't mean it won't happen. And the fact that Trump has said, well, this Ukraine, Russia, and that, he's going to solve it before he even gets into office, and he's going to solve it in 24 hours. And now all of a sudden, well, I'm not going to be negotiating anymore. It's best if they solve it themselves. So, of course, he's having discovered that it's actually difficult to negotiate in the international arena, especially with someone, for example, like Putin, who is a distributive negotiator and who is not going to really negotiate at all. Now Trump has decided that he wants to, the Pope has apparently, the new Pope has apparently expressed a willingness to provide a location for the negotiations. So Trump is out. I guess he doesn't want to be around the Pope or whatever it is. But anyway, he has now he is making noises about withdrawing from the negotiation and saying, well, that it's really better that they negotiate themselves, Russia and Putin and Zelensky. So now, of course, Trump has learned nothing about how challenging international relations actually is. He's going to go ahead and create a problem somewhere else, having learned nothing.
There you have it.
So it doesn't surprise me. So thank you.
And that's the rest of the story.
Anything else you want to add, Mark?
Well, the only thing is we're going to give a program note. Today is Friday. That's when this will be aired. We will not have a session up for Monday for Memorial Day, which we're going to take some time off, much needed.
We wish our listeners a very wonderful Memorial Day weekend. If you're in the United States and you celebrate and you get the Monday off, do enjoy and stay safe. And we will see you again on Tuesday. Right? All righty. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Memorial Day. Take care, everyone, and thank you for listening to the Nova Society. Stay safe.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of NovaWorks, a scholarly depository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description.